I moved to Germany in 2011, and since then, really quite a few things have changed. Some things have been abolished, some things did not even exist back then, and all of these things have affected me on an individual level, which is why I wanted to make this video. So join me on a trip down memory lane. Let's get into it right now. My first point sort of has two parts to it, and is the rise of e-mobility and alternative transport. So there was nothing like Uber, there was nothing like Bolt. When I arrived, there was almost no sort of bike rental services, and there were definitely no e-scooters. And this is something that has really changed the face of cities, not just in Germany. I know it's in a lot of other countries as well. But for me, it's really, something that is aesthetically very different, because you cannot avoid these e-scooters in most of the major cities in Germany. They are really everywhere. This is something that I think will probably be changing in the next few years, but when I arrived in 2011, this had not even been conceived of. So, the second part to this sort of transport thing is that I have seen the last decade in Germany a major push against traditional cars and towards pedestrianizing cities and creating many more bike lanes. And I know there's been quite a few experiments in different cities where they've closed down streets or maybe city centers for a day or for a period, maybe a month or two, often in the summer, and made streets pedestrian. And I suppose, it really depends on if you are a bike rider or a car driver, whether you like this or whether you think this is positive. I think it's really sort of the way in which not just Germany is going, but a lot of other cities as well. But these kind of discussions were not really even a thing 10 years ago when I moved here. And it will be very interesting to see how this develops in the next 10 years to come. Another big thing that I remember when moving to Germany, I actually was talking to a friend about this very recently, is healthcare. And when I arrived in Germany, there were these huge discussions over whether to abolish this rule, which was that patients had to pay a quarterly fee of 10 euros to visit the doctor. So this was on top of the normal health insurance. This had been introduced in 2004, and when I moved in 2011, there were sort of ongoing discussions about really trying to get rid of it or abolish it, which it was then eventually done in 2013. They got rid of this rule. Basically, doctors were just very unhappy with this because they said they were sort of tasked with the administrative burden of, whatever, dealing with the paperwork of the 10 euros, sending it on to the health insurance companies. Obviously, the general population was not that thrilled to have to shell out an extra 10 euros to visit the doctor. This was a major thing in the news. There was a period where it was kind of like the only news story, which I do remember. But I think most people were relieved when they finally got rid of this thing. I've got another major thing which has affected me personally. It's obviously not just Germany, it's pretty much the world in general. But when I moved to Germany, there was no streaming services, nothing like that. Kind of illegal pirating on the internet was a thing. I know it probably still is today, but definitely a lot less than it used to be. There were still like Blockbuster stores where you went to rent videos and DVDs. That is pretty much all gone now. So when I moved here, it was quite difficult for me to get like English language movies or TV. And now, everything is just so easy. You can choose the language that you want to watch the films in. You can choose whatever subtitles you want. It's very easy. But it did mean that back then I was watching a lot more German TV, and I was also watching movies, watching films, like British or American films in German, which was a very weird experience. If you have grown up watching movies, watching films in English, and you sort of associate the accents with that person, it is very weird to watch them then suddenly speak a different language. So I'm quite grateful for the whole streaming services thing. I think this is just the start. It will probably develop very quickly in various different directions in the coming years. But this really has been a massive change since I've been living in Germany. Another huge change, which really happened just as I was moving to Germany, was in March of 2011, the tragic Fukushima accident, which, where the nuclear plant melted down in Japan. I was still in China at the time, but I moved in April, so just like a month later. And then there were massive discussions in the news about what to do with this, the future of nuclear power. And I do think this was really or if not one of the major incidents, or kind of like the last straw for Germany to decide to sort of phase out nuclear power. And And the plan was to phase it out by 2022, which is where we are today. So obviously nobody could have predicted in 2011 what the world would look like in 2022. The plan was to replace all of that with renewable energies. I think in 2018, Germany had something like 40% power from renewable energies, but just crazy to think that 11 years ago, sort of this major decision was taken, and now in 2022 we will see how things develop. And sticking with controversial topics, of course, I couldn't complete this video without mentioning Brexit. So in June of 2016, the referendum results rolled in. It wasn't until 2020 that it actually sort of started to happen. So I started getting letters from the government in 2019. I think it was the summer of 2019 that I got my first letter. And I have to say, I was really very impressed by the whole process. So the first letter was basically just telling me to take it easy, sit tight, don't do anything yet, just wait for further communication, which was quite good because I was sort of starting to look out, research what I needed to do. Basically, I had to get a temporary residence permit for this transitionary period that lasted around 6 months. In this 6 month period, I had 6 months then basically to apply for and receive the permanent residency. And it was all pretty much done online. I think I filled out pretty much, I would say 90% of the application process was done online via the website, and I only had to go to the Office of Foreign Affairs once for like a physical meet. This was of course happening during the pandemic, so this did complicate things to a certain extent, but maybe it was actually better because I could really do everything online, and otherwise I may have had to keep going there for various different appointments. Anyway, very impressed with the whole process. It went very smoothly and I got my permanent residency. Maybe it was a little bit easier because I've already been here for over 5 years. But yeah, now when I come to Germany, I can't just show my passport, I also have to show my residency permit. There are of course many other things that took place in this last decade. In 2015, the minimum wage was brought into Germany. Crazy to think that it's really not that old, and that before that there was no real like official minimum wage. In 2017, gay marriage was legalized. And in 2011, even compulsory military service was ended. So this is also a very big thing for Germany as a country itself, because up until that point, pretty much everyone, at least the men, had to either go to the military or do some sort of social project. I remember meeting Germans in Australia who had done that or had found some sort of way to get out of it, and it was still quite a big part of society. So crazy to think that that's also finished. But yeah, these were just some things that I found very interesting. I always like to reflect and look back and see how things have changed. Yeah, I hope you found it interesting. What are some things that you have noticed that have changed for you and really affected your life personally? Love to hear from you as always. Let me know in the comments below. That's it for now. Take care, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye-bye.